Alright, sixth skill here in Algebra 2, solve by factoring, particularly when there's not a coefficient here, when the coefficient is 1. So how do you solve that quadratic equation? And this is based on the very basic skill, the very important skill of factoring a trinomial. Any trinomial we should be able to factor, but particularly if that trinomial's leading coefficient is 1. It's very common, it shows up all the time. It's definitely a skill that you should have already developed and that we're going to work with here. So what we're doing here, anytime you ever have a trinomial and you're trying to factor it, you're looking for factors of this constant, the c here, that adds up to b. So two numbers that multiply to this and at the same time add to this. Okay, also the zero product property comes into play here. It's pretty simple. If you have two things which multiply together to give you 0, then one of those two factors here has to be 0. There's no way to get a zero product if you have two non-zero factors. Okay, so that is helpful and absolutely necessary to do this. So here's an example of what we call quadratic equation. Quadratic means highest power 2. It's not going to work to try to isolate x squared because this x is going to get in your way, and there's really no way to do it by trying to isolate. So what we want here is to have a 0 because we want to take advantage of the zero product property. But first, let's factor. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply 12 and at the same time add to 7. Well, those numbers, of course, will be 4 and 3. And again, at this point, you probably have already worked with this, and there's ways that you can make a table if you need to see all the factors of 12. You'd have 1 and 12, you'd have 2 and 6, but here 4 and 3 add to 7. That's what you're looking for. 4 times 3 is 12, 4 plus 3 is 7. Okay, we're now going to take advantage of the zero product property because we have two things. This you could call A and this you could call B, which multiply together to give you 0. So according to the zero product property, that's true as long as this is 0 or this is 0. So we're going to do that and then simply solve. Okay, these are easy to solve. Subtract 4 from 0 to get -4. Subtract 3 from 0 to get -3. So these are two solutions. That means if you were to put -4 into either x, it's going to be true. If you put -3 into either x, it's going to be true. Okay, another way you could write that is with a solution set in these braces, -4 comma -3. Sometimes you see that written that way when you have a discrete list of solutions. Second example, okay, again, we already have a 0, which is nice. So think, what are factors of -63 that add to 2? Okay, that would be 9 and -7. Set them each equal to 0 and solve. Okay, I won't show the solution set this time, but it will. Oh yeah, it will. Okay, so -9 and 7. So we do have a solution set for this one. Okay, a third example. Okay, so for this one, we don't have a 0, and you're going to need a 0. So we've got to move these two over. When you factor, you're going to want your leading coefficient, that's the number in front of x squared, to always be positive. Okay, so it's helpful to make it so it's positive. So I'm going to subtract x and subtract 56 to the left-hand side and get this. Now you got to find two numbers that multiply -56 and add to -1. Okay, that's going to be -8 and 7. Again, set them equal to 0 and solve. X equals 8 or x equals -7. So obviously this can only be used when it will factor, but that is pretty common. You're going to see trinomials that factor. So look for factoring and the zero product property to help you solve that quadratic equation.